Hi, I'm Greg with the Ashcraft firm, and I'm an estate planning attorney here, and it's April, and so you're probably thinking about taxes. And so I wanted to talk to you a bit about the taxes you can expect at death. So we will be talking about 4 different types of taxes at death, and I'm going to be going over them week by week. So first, we're actually going to go in reverse order here. So first we'll be talking about property taxes. The week after that we'll be talking about income taxes. Then we're going to be talking about estate taxes, and finally we'll be talking about capital gains tax. And I put them in this order because this is the order of importance and how much they can really affect your estate. So if you look here, you can see first we're going to be talking about property taxes. That's only important in California. And the reason that is, well, it's only important in California as far as I know, but in California in 1978, we got together as a voting party and we voted in Prop 13. And Prop 13 said that we are going to lock our property tax in at a certain rate, and it can only increase incrementally. So that means if you purchased your home in 1990 and your neighbor purchased their home in 2015, you probably have very different property tax bills. That when you purchase at 1990, you have a lot lower tax rate than your neighbor who purchased at 2015. And you might be asking what this has to do with death. Well, you can actually pass your property tax rate on to your children and grandchildren, but you have to do it properly. So I actually had somebody call me one time, and let's talk about the bad situation here first. So I had them call me, and they had 2 other siblings, okay? So their parents had a home, and the oldest, when their parents passed away, wanted to live in the home. So they all inherited 1/3 of this property, okay? So each child, they each had a 1/3 ownership in the property. Now this child wanted to receive the property in its entirety. So they wanted to buy out the interests of the other 2 children. Now, like I said, you can pass your property tax rate that's locked in here from parent to child. So you can pass your property rate here. Okay, so you've got your locked in property rate, you've owned that property since 1990, it's got a much lower tax rate than if you purchase the property today. The problem is that you can't pass your property tax rate from sibling to sibling, which means if they each receive an equal 1/3 portion of that property, and one of the children there purchases the property rights from the other 2, then that 1/3 interest, well, it's actually 2/3, because this child bought out their shares after they received the property. This child's 2/3 of that property is going to have to be reassessed at a new property tax rate. So they're going to be paying a lot higher property tax rate than what they were expecting when they received the property. So that can really affect somebody financially there. Now let's plan differently. Let's find a different way to pass that property. Now let's say that instead of passing all property in 1/3 portions, instead of doing that, what we did is we said, okay, well, all of my property is going to be valued when I pass away. And let's say that this child and this child just want to receive cash payouts, and this child wants to receive the home. We can give that person the home, and then we can redistribute the other assets. So it doesn't have to be an equal distribution of each property. Instead, it just has to be equal overall. So if we write that in the terms of our trust, then we can give, let's say that you had an IRA or something like that was passing through that plan, or some kind of investment or something like that, then you can make up the difference of the value of this house by giving more of those investments to these 2 children. that will not trigger a tax reassessment for that real property. So if we plan that way, then we can have this child's real property not be reassessed for tax purposes, for property tax purposes. Okay, so the problem is that also you have to have enough assets to make that distribution equally without giving out any of the property interest to these other two children. So the planning is actually twofold. You have to create an estate plan that allows you to distribute assets, and it doesn't each asset doesn't have to be distributed in equal amounts. It just has to overall be equal. That's part of the planning. And then also you have to have enough liquid assets passing through your trust to make that happen. And so what happens is a lot of people, they don't transfer all of their assets. Let's say that you have a trust. In the state of California, most people want a trust to avoid probate because probate is such a hairy process here in this state. So let's say that you created this trust, but not all the assets are filtering through the trust. Then the trustee technically cannot do this, because if the house is the only asset passing through that trust, they have to pass it in equal shares like we did here. So if we're passing more of our property through that trust, and we create terms in that trust that say that we can distribute the assets in any manner we like as long as it's an equal distribution overall, then we can make it so that we ensure that our children are receiving the same property tax rate that we had in our property. Thank you so much for listening. If you want to receive notifications about when the next videos become live, then just fill out your name and your email. There will be a pop-up that comes up, and then we'll tell you when those come out. Thanks again for watching.